Gemling Legionnaire might just be the Ascendancy with the most unknown potential, yet it could just be the highest we've ever seen before. Hey, I'm Cyclon, and GGG has given us all the Ascendancies. I expected we're gonna get like, over the next few days, starting with Monday, going all the way to Friday, we would have seen one or two a day. But no, they just shown us everything. So we're gonna be starting with the Gemling Legionnaire, the Ascendancy that I think is gonna be the one we know the least about despite having seen everything it does. And the reason for that is, this is all about the rest of the game. How good are the gems? How good are the quality of gems? How important is level? How important are attributes? Can you stack attributes? What else does the skill tree offer? What do the items offer? What mods exist on items? There are so many unknowns that heavily affect how powerful this Ascendancy is, and I think this is what makes this Ascendancy so interesting. Now, before we're going to take a look at the nodes themselves, and then at potentially builds that can utilize this Ascendancy to just be absolutely powerful, I'm gonna need to make a disclaimer here. Despite GGG giving us the Ascendancies now and having shown them, this is still early access. Anything is subject to change. If something is deemed too weak or too powerful, they change it. If anything during early access turns out to be too weak or too powerful, they have said that they're willing to change things. So just keep this in mind with everything that is shown before the full release, that is likely gonna be in about a year. Anything in early access can change. If there's something you really want to try out, do try it out early, because it could be changed during the early access. Now that said, let's take a look at this. The first node, number 1, crystalline potential. Now I could have sworn that on the early access reveal, this said 12% or 14% and not 10%. Now this means one of the few things. First of all, this node is very interesting, giving us up the additional 10 quality to all skill gems. Can be quite powerful. Some skill gems just gain additional projectiles or more damage multiplier just from their quality. So depending on how hard it is to achieve quality, how powerful the gems are then based on their quality, this node can be absolutely busted. Let's assume you're in campaign, and because mercenary you're using grenades. So let's say cluster grenade has a quality of 4 additional projectiles at 20 quality. Now this would mean that we, just from taking this node, it gets 2 additional projectiles. Now of course this is absolutely overtuned. I don't think it's gonna have that quality, but I just wanted to give a showcase of how powerful this could be. Or with a PoE1 example, Mamba Strike, Viper Strike of the Mamba has 40% more damage with poison at 20 quality, so this node will give it 20% more damage with poison. Or Cobra Lash has more damage for each remaining chain. With this, that is 10% more damage for each remaining chain, or whatever number that gem actually has. So this node has a very high potential. We just need to see how it is. Now also, this is the great thing about this. I'm gonna compare this directly to Witch Hunter because this is also Sensei I covered. The Witch Hunter has very clear packages for damage, for survivability, for mapping, and for utility. The Gemling Legionnaire has offensive and defensive on the same nodes. Quality, and going on to the next node, implanted gems +1 to level of all skills, have both potential for offensive power and defensive power. Meaning that it's very efficient on the nodes, because getting an additional level on defensive skills, let's say, I assume it's not in the game anymore, but let's say an additional level on Graves, being more evasion rating, would be really great. But it also could be that gem levels are really easy to get, so they might not be that great. Or again, with the quality, having on something like, let's say, Arctic Armor, maybe in PoE2 it has a quality that it gets more First damage taken is cold, which could be really great. Maybe the quality scales that and could be really good. We need to see how the gems are to determine how powerful this is for potential damage, for potential defenses, and for quality of life. But the quality of skills, of all skills, can be very, very powerful, and the level is same. We just need to see how easy is it to scale gem levels, how important is it to scale gem levels, do scaling gem levels do anything for attacks, anything for spells, anything for utility gems. This is the unknown factor for this Ascendancy that makes it so interesting to look into. How good are these gems? And now the third one. This is 30% less cost of skills. Now, here is the thing about skills. We do not know if the spirit cost for reservation gems is considered a cost, because they do say reservation 30 spirit. But if this is deemed a cost to reserve, this could be 30% reservation. Now, unlike with the Witch Hunter, where I was like, yes, it's definitely gonna be this way, I don't think this is gonna be this way. I think this, if it would be that way, this node would be way too strong. Just trimming 30% reservation off of everything, that would be absolutely massive. But even just the cost still has its potential. I don't think it's gonna affect reservation of spirits, but it's gonna affect the cost. And the cost for some skills can be massive. In PoE1 we had Corrupting Fever that had a massive health cost, and getting that cost into a reasonable range was very, very important. And that gem actually wanted level and quality, so this could be really huge if that gem still exists in PoE2 or gets reintroduced in PoE2. This might just be what makes that gem broken again, just gonna say that. So the downside of more attribute requirements should be okay. Most gems have like 150 attributes requirement in PoE1. Now 155 at level 21. This means that with 30 more it's gonna be like 200 something. Of your main stat you usually had in PoE1 300 of one stat. So I think this downside, if this skill is powerful, the downside will be manageable. But moving on to the next one, another unknown factor node. Integrated efficiency gives us additional skill slots. Now these additional skill slots are great if needed. The issue I see here is we don't know, or I don't know how many we're actually gonna have. I assume we're gonna have 7, but I've seen clips where somebody just keeps scrolling down and it doesn't feel like 7. So it could be that that was just for the early access or for the closed beta and the review access, that they had more than needed to test out more things. It could be that we are limited to a few spots. We will have to see, but depending on how many we have, 3 additional more could be really great or actually not that important. However, the nodes this leads into, now those are interesting. Also need to keep in mind, this is another node, just like the quality, we can get very early. We could technically get the quality or this in campaign, meaning that in campaign, if those skill slots are really powerful, getting them early could be pretty huge. But we have to see how important those are at what stage of the game. Now, the node this leads into is Gem Studded. Gem Studded allows us to use 2 copies of a support gem. Now, how this sounds is that we can use each support gem 2 times instead of once. So if there's a powerful support gem with a massive more multiplier, instead of having just 1 main skill, we can basically have 2 main skills, or we can have 2 main skills and 4 secondary skills. Then we can have 2 massive buff skill setups, we can have 2 debuff setups, because we again have those 3 additional skill slots. It just allows us to use every good skill gem an additional time. And this thing, I think, straight up is gonna be powerful. No questions asked. Having access to powerful support gems more than once allows us to mix and match our skills even more strongly. Because we don't need to consider, if I use this here, I can't use it here. Well, no. If I use it here, I can still use it over there. I have just access to both. Wonderful. Now, the other node the integrated efficiency leads to is number 6, Thaumaturgical Infusion. And I have to say, this one is the one I'm the most unsure about. In PoE1, Max Res is a stat that isn't that easily gained. We need a melding of the flesh, a powerful shield, or we need a purity aura. So maximum resistance is something hard to get and very powerful in terms of negating elemental damage. In PoE2, most damage will be negated on hits and dodged on AoE. If it just hits, do we need max res or are other survivability layers stronger? We will have to see. So this thing is, I don't know how important max res is gonna be. I don't know how hard it is to access it. If it is very important and very hard to access, this is a powerful node. Let's just assume we have 10 skill spots, including integrated efficiency, on the skill gem list. This means we have 50 support slots. So with 50 support slots, we can fit in 16 blue gems, 16 red gems, and 16 green gems. So 16, 32, 48. This means plus 4 max res to each. Now, another important thing is, how good are the support gems? Do we want to fit in that many of one kind? Or do we want to maybe just go all in one resistance and we have something like melding that makes one resistance apply to all resistances? We will have to see. But this means this has very high potential depending on how the rest of the game is built up. Again, how easy is max res, how important is max res, and how accessible is it? Now, the next two nodes are the last half on the Ascendancy, the last section of the Ascendancy. And now it's all about attributes. The first one allows us to attribute stack. Attributes required of gems can be satisfied by your highest attribute. This means that we can go all in on strengths and get all the flat life, which might be super important. Or maybe attribute stacking is a big thing in PoE2. We can go all in on dexterity, scaling dexterity and accuracy rating, scaling our attack speed and attack damage of those, and maybe getting some flat damage over in mode. We don't know what's on the items yet. Attribute stacking, if that is a thing, well, this node allows it to be fully accessible for us and just goes all in on attribute stacking. And then we have enhanced effectiveness. Now, inherent bonuses, it really depends on how this is working. Inherent bonuses, I assume, are the default bonuses. For intelligence, it's mana, for strength, it's life, and for dexterity, it's accuracy rating. However, if the tree gives dexterity also gives, for example, strength also applies to projectile damage, or dexterity also applies to attack speed or something. If those are doubled as well, then this node becomes that much more powerful for attribute stacking. We will have to see. Otherwise, maybe this is really powerful from scaling int and doubling the mana we get from it, or life and doubling the strength we get for it. We have to see how powerful it is. This is again a thing that it sounds very powerful, but it depends how the rest of the game is built up to see how strong it is. Now, having said this, the sections on this are gem effectiveness, so quality, level, and cost. Amount of gems, so more gem spots, more active gems, more supportive gems, and attributes. So given this, what can we actually do with this Ascendancy? The first thing I came to my mind is an attribute stacker. With adaptive capabilities, enhanced effectiveness, depending how it works, could be really great for stacking attributes. Now it could be that it just gives the bonus to the base stats, so it becomes a bit more meh, but it then maybe get buffed and then it could become good. But we could go and start with 7-8 for attribute stacking, and then depending on what is more needed, we can get quality and gem level, or we could get skill slots and all res or max res, or we can get skill slots and the support gems. We have a few options here that we can go with. Maybe 8 isn't good at all, and we then grab the attribute, then we get the skill slots into the additional copies of support gems, and the all res is also potentially available Ascendancy combination, but this could be really great for attribute stacking. Another way to make this very powerful is to not go for attributes at all. Instead, maybe there is something like Venom Gyre or Poison Mamba Strike or something that heavily scales of gem level and quality, or Corrupting Fever. If there's something that heavily stacks of quality of gems and level of gems, well, we easily just take the left side. We get the gem level and we get the quality, and then we can use the additional support gems or the max stress for defensive layers, and then we got our quality stacking build or gem level stacking build. Or, and this is the third potential build for the Gemling Legionnaire, minions. Now this one depends kind of how accessible Spirit is. Spirit in Passive Exile 2 is needed for auras, buffs, cast on something skills, and for minions, meaning you need a lot of Spirit to have a big minion army. Now, if this 30% less cost of skills applies to Spirit Reservation for your minions, this is a guaranteed pick for a minion build. Now, of course, it also depends on how easy you get to the minion nodes, as this is on the bottom of the tree and normally minion nodes are on the north of the tree. We will have to see, but this could mean that you just have all the Spirit and you just have massive minion army, getting levels, which usually is important for minions, quality, which might be important for minions, and the cost of skills, and then the additional skill slots to have even more minions. Maybe we skip the level and we just go for the less cost if it gives preservation, and then we use the additional support gems, meaning that our minions can be even more powerful. We can be more versatile with the support gems. It could be a really powerful minion Ascendancy if it works the way I assume, and we have a good access of Spirit or the less cost of skills affecting Spirit for at least minions. If either of that applies, good source of minions or that, this might be a really powerful minion build. But again, we will have to see. So this is the Gemling Legionnaire Mercenary. A very, very interesting Ascendancy that heavily relies on how the rest of the game is built, and depending on what the game gives us access to, it's gonna be more powerful or it's gonna be less powerful. Now, video doesn't have to be longer than it has to be, so if you enjoyed this video, if it was interesting, I would highly appreciate a thumbs up, and to subscribe to the channel. Helps me grow, helps me reach more people that are interested in my content, and also based on the YouTube algorithm, you are supposed to enjoy the video that is up here, and up there you're gonna find a playlist with the rest of the Ascendancy overviews and potential builds for the Ascendancies. Maybe it's interesting for you, give it a watch. All that being said, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in my next video or live on early access launch. Goodbye.